All right, everyone, I got a special guest. If you go back to the archives, and I'm talking about beginning of the archive, you will find Dr. Tyna Moore and I talking about some really powerful stuff, injectables, muscle health, blood sugar, if I remember correctly. It was a really, really good podcast. But guess what? A lot of you are asking about Ozempic, and it's been around for a little bit of time now, but now it's in the celebrity fad. Everyone's using it. We're going to learn more about it. We're going to learn the ins and outs, if it's good for you, if it's good for your health, or you should absolutely stay away from it. Dr. Tyna never shies away from controversy, which I love because you know I do the same. And she's an expert in holistic regenerative medicine and resilient metabolic health. She is licensed as a naturopathic physician, a fellow naturopathic physician, and a chiropractor. Her work is not only about treating symptoms, it's also about understanding the healing root causes to build a robust foundation for long-term well-being. She's also known for that fierce and fiery, open-minded approach that she takes to everything. Now in the exploration of the peptide semaglutide, which you know as Ozempic. As a longevity tool for healing, Dr. Tyna champions medical autonomy and individual accountability, and she's on a mission to help as many people as possible experience the freedom and joy to bring health like a real naturopathic doctor does. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tyna. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's been a few shows.
Yeah.
We were talking about like 30, 35, and now we're like at 2. So it's been a few years.
You're a celebrity now.
No. I'm keeping up with you. Listen, you during COVID was you were putting it out on the fire. You were putting fires, and we were just talking off air. Isn't it funny that now in retrospect, a lot of the things you were saying were true? We don't have to go into that, but I just wanted to bring that to light. Okay, so a little justification on that. But I want to talk to you about Ozempic. Okay, let me tell you. Sometimes I open Instagram and I see all the celebs' transformations on Ozempic. Right, and I'm like, whoa. Okay, this person lost a lot of weight. This person lost a lot of weight. What the heck is Ozempic? What's it used for? And why has it become so popular?
So Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, those are all in a class of peptides. They're actually peptides. They're not drugs, called GLP-1 agonists. And our body makes GLP-1 naturally. Although data shows that those who struggle with obesity, diabetes, fatty liver, they have an actual GLP-1 deficiency. So there is a GLP-1 deficiency happening in many people. This peptide, much like the other peptides that you might be familiar with, like BPC 157, have you heard of any of the, the regenerative ones? It's in the same class of peptides in that it's a string of amino acids. All they've done with, say, for instance, semaglutide is they have altered one portion of it. It's bioidentical to our naturally occurring GLP-1 in that it lasts longer in the body once they tweaked it, and the pharmaceutical version. So GLP-1 in the body does a lot of things. And what I think we all know it for, and what probably most of social media knows it for, is slowing down gastric motility. So slowing down how fast things move through us. Secondly, impacting our appetite, just basically how often, how much food we want to eat. There's regions in the brain where I guess you could call it appetite suppression at a high enough dose, but that's what they're using it for in the allopathic system. They are trying to suppress people's appetite, and they are trying to slow gastric motility in the hopes of improving things. It heals metabolism, however. As a peptide, it's regenerative, it's healing, and it's anti-inflammatory. So there's a lot more to it that we're not hearing about, and there's a lot more to it that I don't think most doctors even understand, even doctors who are using it. Most of them are using it for weight loss. And I'm here to share that there is a whole lot more data on different regions of our body that nobody is appreciating. And there are some studies happening looking into some of them, but when I got into the data, I was pretty mind blown, and it was not matching up with what I was hearing. And so I've just been in, neck deep in the data since last summer. And I feel like the propaganda around it is being sensationalized, and I feel like we're not being told the whole story.
What is the story that's being sensationalized right now just with Ozempic?
Well, interestingly, this class of peptides, there's several of them in this. Semaglutide and tirzepatide are the newer versions, but there are some that go back 20 years that have been in use for diabetes. And we didn't hear the smear campaign until the weight loss conversation came up, which I find very interesting. It wasn't until people started using it for weight loss that everybody started losing their minds about it. The way that it's being used in the allopathic system, which we can get into, I don't think is ideal for most people. As a peptide, it's a signaling hormone, just like insulin is a signaling peptide hormone. So if you overdose somebody on it, they're going to have horrific side effects. And so we're hearing about the horrific side effects. And even in that case, a lot of the statistics you're hearing are not correct. They're being way overhyped and way over sensationalized. As far as what the data is showing, the rates of some of these conditions that people are supposedly happening everywhere, it's not matching up. It's not matching up with social media.
Okay, so what are some of the side effects that are being sensationalized?
Yeah. So obviously nausea and gastrointestinal side effects, right? So nausea, vomiting. I can see how that could happen readily if somebody's overdosed on it. It's a dosing and management issue, in my opinion. So people are going on a dose, they're starting on a dose that I think is too high, and they're being ramped up too quickly. And in that, they're having all kinds of gastrointestinal issues, which completely makes sense, but that's a management issue. That's where the physician needs to do a better job, or the patient needs to slow the roll. That's not the peptide's fault. It's kind of like if I gave you a huge dose of thyroid hormone. In small doses, it might be necessary to replace physiologic levels that you might be deficient in. But for me, thyroid is like life-changing, right? It changed my life when I got on it. But you give me super high doses, I'm going to have a heart attack. So we don't blame the thyroid hormone. We blame the doctor who's prescribing the thyroid hormone. So the standard of care with these peptides is pretty high and fast. They ramp people up over about 16 weeks to incredibly high doses, which is insane to me, like insane doses. And I don't think most people need to be up there. And so the way that the standard of care is going about it, I'm not completely understanding. But when you look at it in physiologic doses, I look at it like a hormone. And in that, I'm like, if people are deficient, what happens if we replace that deficiency, right? We don't get those horrible side effects. Some of the others that we're hearing about, thyroid cancer, it's been completely disproven. I mean, the literature coming out even the past few weeks, they're looking at multitudes of studies over long term. There's no thyroid cancer happening in humans. The group it's being used on, however, diabetics and those who are struggling with obesity, definitely a much higher propensity for thyroid cancer in those groups. So we're looking at groups of people who are already prone to that, and then we're blaming the peptide for something that's potentially just correlative. Yeah. Even that, though, they're like, even the Cleveland Clinic came out, like, no, there's no thyroid cancer happening. Another one would be gastroparesis, totally real, possible side effect if you take a whomping dose. Also, who's most prone to gastroparesis? Diabetics. Their vagus nerve starts to disintegrate from hyperglycemia, right? From excess blood sugar. And so you're taking someone who's potentially sitting on the edge, and maybe they've just got like some burping and some dyspepsia, and they come to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, here's some Pepsid AC, right? Here's some over-the-counter whatever. And it's actually the beginning symptoms of gastroparesis. And then they get put on a whomping dose of something that shuts down their gut motility. So there's a pancreatitis. That's another one, right? Who's most prone to pancreatitis? Those with fatty pancreas, people sitting with metabolic dysfunction and type 2 diabetes. The number one cause of pancreatitis is throwing a stone from the gallbladder. Who's most prone to gallbladder issues and gallbladder stones? Same group of people. So we're taking a group of people who's potentially in a very brittle state, and then they're being whomped with a very high and fast dosage protocol that's sending them over the edge. So yes, it's happening, but I don't think, the literature is not showing it happening at the rates that we're hearing about, and I don't think it doesn't need to be that way.
How much higher is the standard dose than we should be taking for Ozempic?
Well, it depends. And so when I got into the data, the first thing I looked at was, so my background's in regenerative medicine, like you said. I got into looking at the impact on the brain. I was like, what's it doing in the brain? What's it doing with pain? Those are the two things I always look up, brain, pain, because ultimately our pain's coming from our brain. And, found all of this data showing a reduction in neuroinflammation with GLP-1s. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And then I found neuroregenerative data. Like, what do we have that regenerates brain tissue? Really nothing. And then I found out that GLP-1 is produced in the brain. It's not just produced in the gut. It's actually produced in several regions of the brain. So it must be important in the brain, not just for satiety and appetite suppression, but for potentially many other things. And then I found that there is GLP-1 receptors throughout the entire body. It's in our cardiac tissue. It's regenerative to cardiac tissue. It's regenerative to pancreatic tissue. It starts to heal insulin resistance at the cellular level. So it quite literally is healing metabolic dysfunction, which is huge. It's not just a Band-Aid. It's not just while they're on it. It's actually having a regenerative and healing effect long term. Where else? Reversing type 1 diabetes if caught early, which is just phenomenal. The only thing we have for that is stem cells, which is not always permanent and also very expensive, right? This peptide, when compounded, is very affordable. So the dose necessary to answer your question is whatever the person needs.
Yeah. Whoever's
sitting in front of me, what do they need? What's happening here? What are we trying to treat? Short term, long term? What are our goals? I'm using it for autoimmune conditions. I'm using it for cardiovascular conditions. I personally started on it myself for brain fog, just horrific brain fog. I have psoriatic arthritis. And it was really rearing its head during the whole COVID thing because I was pushing back on the narrative and I was taking hell for it. And I think it caught up with me and my autoimmune disease really crested. And I'm hitting menopause at the same time. And I was like, everything I know to do wasn't working. And I thought, I wonder what a tiny little dose of this would do for me. And that tiny little dose depends on the person. If someone's, I always say when people say, what's the dose? I'm like, well, how GLP-1 deficient are they? That's the question we have to answer, but we don't have any labs to run GLP-1 levels. So we don't know. But if someone's sitting in front of me with significant type 2 diabetes or significant metabolic dysfunction, maybe significant obesity, they're probably more deficient than I am. I'm really metabolically tuned in. I strength train. I do all the things. I just need a touch, right? And they sit on our immune cells. GLP-1 has receptors on our immune cells, on our mast cells. So I started on it for autoimmune, for brain fog, and a couple other personal reasons. And at the tiniest doses, the results have been phenomenal. Phenomenal. And it's almost like it harmonizes all the other efforts I'm putting forward. It makes all the work I'm doing to keep myself metabolically optimized and just healthy in general work. It's just easier. It just works better. And the long term, I've been on it now 9 months. The long-term benefits are blowing me away. It just gets better and better and better. So I started putting patients on it at different doses. Everybody kind of starts and goes at a different dose, and we cycle it like we do any other hormone. And the results are just blowing me away. Like I cannot actually believe what I'm seeing. And I'm starting to wonder why the smear campaign, because who has something to lose in all of this? What big corporate, whoever has something to lose in this? It helps with alcohol abuse syndrome. It's been shown, and this is being studied. Efficacy with smoking cessation. I'm getting messages from my followers. They're not shopping like crazy anymore. They're not embarking on dopamine driven addictions anymore. Like trying to, we all chase a different dragon for our dopamine hits. I'm hearing all kinds of interesting things. I have a decent sized following, and people are reporting back just the most phenomenal results at different doses. So I don't know, that got me going, and here we are.
And these doses, are they all sub what's being prescribed at? Let's say I go to the doctor, I say I want to lose weight. Is it all at the doses lower than that? Have you ever been struggling with mood swings? Like getting really irritated by the simplest things, something like someone not responding to an email quick enough, or your partner leaving dishes in the sink. I know a lot of you know about that. But if you feel like your hormones are out of whack, like you haven't really been sleeping well, been stressed a lot, craving foods that you're not used to craving, or your skin or your hair or even your muscles, they feel different. Let me talk to you about a game-changing mineral that can help you feel your best. That is magnesium. Magnesium is an absolute must to keep your hormones balanced and your body functioning optimally. Let me tell you the thing though, most of us are not getting nearly enough magnesium in our diets. And when you're deficient in this vital mineral, it will throw out your entire system. It'll be out of sync. We know that. In addition to hundreds of different chemical reactions, magnesium plays a vital role in hormonal balance, glucose metabolism, right, your blood sugar, and managing your symptoms across different stages of life. This makes magnesium supplementation great for all ages. I love Magnesium Breakthrough by BioOptimizers. It's been one of my longest standing sponsors because I talk about it so much and everyone takes it around me. It's like a little osmotic effect. If I'm using it, all the people that I love are using it. It is a unique formula that contains 7 different forms of highly bioavailable magnesium, including magnesium orotate, which is amazing for your metabolic and hormonal health. It can also support your sleep, digestive health, and stress management. Nourish your brain and your body with Magnesium Breakthrough. Go to biooptimizers.com/DRG and use the promo code DRG10 to get 10% off of any order. That is BIOPTIMIZERS.com/DRG and use the code DRG10 with 10% off of any order. If you've been taking a closer look at your products in life and making big changes to choose healthier options, don't forget about one of the most important areas in your life. That is where you're spending a third of your life. That is your mattress. We all know that it's crucial for sleep and for overall health and well-being. But did you know the materials in your mattress can have a major impact on your quality of sleep? Many traditional materials are loaded with harmful chemicals and materials that can disrupt your rest and even your long-term health. That is why years ago, I made a switch to Birch mattress. As it is GOTS and Green Guard Gold certified, Birch only uses natural, non-toxic materials like wool and latex. This ensures my sleep environment is free of polyurethane foams, harsh chemicals, and other pollutants. And I'm gonna tell you this, the difference has been life-changing. I'm a deep sleeper, waking up more refreshed, and generally just feel better day to day. And with Birch's 100-night sleep trial, 25-year warranty, they have flexible financing options. It's an investment in my health, and it's easy to make. If you're serious about optimizing your well-being, head to birchliving.com/heal-thyself to get 20% off of your Birch mattress, plus 2 free Eco Rest pillows during the Birch Memorial Day sale. That is BIRCHLIVING.com/heal-thyself.
Usually, yes. And it's kind of varied across the board, but the traditional way of doing it, the standard way of doing it, allopathic wise, Ozempic, Wegovy, brand name versions, those come in pens, and those pens are pre-dosed. You can't control the dosing on those. So they come in what you get. And the starting dose, unfortunately, is for semaglutide should be 0.25 milligrams. That's what the starting pens are. But those pens have been out of stock for a long time. So people are being started on 0.5 milligram, which I have very few people up to that. So my point is people are being slammed at a starting dose that is way too high. And when I told my daughter that, she was like, oh my gosh, my dad's very obese and diabetic, and they wanted to start him at 0.5 milligrams. And my daughter was like, Papa, that'll kill you. Like, that's way too high. She knows because she's taking it. It's reversed her PCOS. It's reversed her depression. It's reversed her acne. So what they're doing to folks, I think, is kind of criminal. And people are blaming the peptide, and with good reason, but you see what I'm saying? Like, they're getting hit with something. It's like getting hit with a train. Yeah. When you're a naturopathic doctor, we meet the patient where they're at. We dose based on their vitality. We don't dose based on what the standard, algorithm says.
Yeah.
So
100%, because everyone's different biochemically.
Everyone's
right?
different, right?
So what I'm thinking about then is, even at a lower dose, let's say sub 0.5, even 0.2, is there a risk because of its effects on your metabolic health? Is there a risk for cancer, or is the thyroid thing only at high levels, or that's not even?
There's no thyroid cancer in humans.
So there's no risk for cancer in general?
There's no causative data. And in the last few weeks even, they've had new data come out, new studies coming out showing they're not concerned about there's not a thyroid cancer risk. There's not a pancreatitis. I'm sorry. Let me correct that. There's not a pancreatic cancer risk either. They actually, the big study they just did that finished up at the end of 2023, the SELECT trial, it was about cardiovascular disease. The pancreatitis was more prevalent in the control group than it was in the semaglutide group. So we're getting fed bad information, and I'm seeing people online just parrot the same thing. I saw a doctor I follow today. He actually did a very short reel. It was literally the same information that he had pulled off of another doctor's YouTube video that I just watched, almost verbatim. He just condensed it down and made a reel out of it. So we're just seeing this game of telephone. I don't think these people are actually researching it, is my point. I don't think they're looking at the same data I'm looking at.
So Ozempic is used for weight loss because of its appetite suppression capabilities.
Right.
Will someone lose weight if they go on lower doses?
That is a good question. So let me just clarify. Ozempic is FDA approved for type 2 diabetes. Wegovy is, which is funny because we never talk about Wegovy, but Wegovy is the version, that is FDA approved for weight loss, but it's the same peptide. It's from the same company. Yes, only if they need to. So what I'm finding is that people just sort of, and now this is reserved for people who are generally metabolically fit. This is not, the microdosing strategy that I'm talking about is not working so great on people who have a lot of weight to lose or who are very diabetic. This is for people like you and me who maybe want to use it for whatever, like I'm using it for my psoriasis. I'm using it for brain fog. I'm using it for mood improvement. And I was already metabolically optimized and I put in the work every day. So for me, it wasn't a far stretch and a small dose will do. I'm finding in folks who don't lift weights and who aren't physically fit and who are not doing the work, they are requiring much higher doses. They're probably more deficient is my point. But to answer your question, everybody's kind of just, if they have like a layer of bloat to lose, they lose it. Nobody's dropping below their fighting weight. So even my mom, I've got my mom on the tiniest little dose. She has Crohn's disease. She's got chronic joint pain. I have her on the tiniest dose. All of her joint pain's gone. Her gut issues are resolving, which is like, that's why I will die on this hill. Because to get my mom out of, my mom's had chronic joint pain my entire life. My mom's had gut issues. She almost died in 2019. When I met you, she almost had died during that period. And I had pulled her out of it with regenerative medicine, with stem cells. And to put her on something so non-invasive and so inexpensive when used in a compounded version at such a tiny dose, and to give her life back and her mobility back is like, it's crazy to me that more doctors aren't using it. She just lost a few pounds though. She didn't have much weight to lose. So she got down and everyone just sort of plateaus right at their fighting weight. I had gained from the last time you saw me until recently, I had gained about 20 pounds from all the stress, and it fell right off pretty quickly. And I'm not budging. Like, I'm not going below. I'm literally in the exact same jeans I was in here however many years ago.
Right.
Like, I'm the same size I was last time you saw me. But point being is, it's not pushing people into excessive weight loss unless they abuse it. I'm sure there's room for that. You live in LA.
Yeah.
Lots of doctors and lots of patients like to abuse things for off-label use. And I know that's happening, but again, that's not the peptide's fault.
When, at lower doses, is it helping anything with muscle health? Because I know a lot of people at higher doses, they're saying, oh no, Ozempic, you're going to lose weight, you're going to lose fat, but you also lose muscle.
Right.
And I want to know if that's true too. That's
a good question. So anytime you go on a severely calorically restricted diet, you're going to lose muscle. And the average in the weight loss world, when somebody's put on a low calorie diet, is about 25 to 30%. And they're seeing in the data that's about average for people using this peptide at the traditional standard brand name dosing. The reasons for that are many. They're only measuring muscle mass. So they're literally looking at muscle mass, not quality of muscle. And you know as well as I do that muscle is very different in somebody who's metabolically optimized, and it's quite pathologic in somebody who's not. There's a lot of fatty infiltrate in muscle that is living in a diabetic body because it gets marbled. That's one of the first things that happens. That actually feeds forward the diabetes cycle, is this sort of fatty infiltrate and atrophy. It's this sarcopenic obesity. So the quality of that muscle is much different than somebody who is active and fit and eating enough protein. So there's a couple factors here. One is when that muscle mass is being reduced, I believe if they would actually look at it and biopsy it, which would be difficult to do, that those folks are losing the fatty infiltrate, which will make the muscle mass come out reduced. There is also a risk with not drinking enough water. That is one thing I will say. It doesn't kick your desire to drink water off, but it does seem to make people forget more. So I think that when you get into a dehydrated state, you're also losing muscle mass. Yeah. So those are two factors that no one's talking about. I just wanted to throw out there. And then third, when you're in a calorically restricted state, you're going to lose muscle mass if you're not actually protecting it. And then we have to take into consideration compliance. How are these people eating? Did they go from eating garbage food to just eating less garbage food? And I'm not judging anyone, but that, people are not being counseled on what good, healthy food is. And even though you and I, we take for granted what we know, but I think that folks are maybe eating not so great nutrient dense food, not so great with the protein intake, and then they're just eating less of it over here. Plus their appetites are being crushed because they're being dosed too high. Yeah. So they're going into an anorexic state. That's going to make you lose muscle. When you look at the literature around these peptides, particularly in rodents, but also some human data, it is inducing muscle protein synthesis. It's hyperperfusing the muscle with better vasculature so that the amino acids can get in there. And it actually is the opposite of what we're hearing. It does not cause directly by any means muscle loss. It actually causes muscle gain. And I haven't lost a bit of muscle. I've been tracking it the entire time. It depends on how the patient is managing their muscle.
So the people who are taking Ozempic at high doses, they're just may not be working out as much, and they're just losing a bunch. They're
wasting.
Yeah, they're wasting, because I seen pictures of celebrities. I'm like, these people, they look like they're wasting.
They're wasting away. They're malnourished, and they're wasting away because they're not eating anything. And if they are eating, they're not prioritizing protein. They're not protecting their muscle.
I see.
So they're literally malnourished and wasting. They're starving.
Yeah, they're starving themselves.
Yeah.
And you could see how so when they say the Ozempic face, that's just a wasting away of the collagen, the muscle tissue. What is it?
Well, it doesn't actually, I looked at the collagen literature. It doesn't actually cause collagen loss. It has a cool modulating effect on collagen, which I don't entirely understand yet. I don't think they totally understand, but it actually causes an improvement in elasticity of our collagen, which is very cool. But again, the data is really limited. I think they need to look at it further. I think Ozempic face is twofold. One, they're probably losing muscle mass around their facial structure. And then two, they're losing fat, and fat keeps us youthful. I mean, any middle-aged woman will tell you, don't get too thin because you'll start to look really old. And in LA, I walk around and there's a lot of very frozen, very filled faces because these women maintain a very thin body habitus. So they have to make up for that collagen loss. And there's also something no one talks about is as we age, our bony structure starts to erode. We get osteoporosis. And so we actually start to have our facial bones to some degree dissolve due to osteoporosis. And so you take somebody who's in that state and maybe their fat pads have been what's keeping them youthful, and they do it too fast, too strong, and woof, they come out the other side looking like hell. So that's Ozempic face. There's Ozempic butt. That's a thing too.
What's that all about?
That's where you just lose your butt. Same
gone.
reasons. Like they just waste away, and they're, your body's going to eat your muscle up if you don't protect it.
So at lower doses, is that something to worry about then?
No, I haven't seen any problems, and I've been tracking people, and everybody's doing fine. Even my little 80-something-year-old mama.
They still have their butt.
Yeah, they're good. And in fact, to answer your question even further, like I said, my daughter's on it, and my daughter's a curvy girl. She's a big, tall, beautiful, we're not built the same. I'm like the skinny, straight stick mom, and she's the curvy, beautiful creature. And she got her symptoms under control that we were going for. And she was like, I don't want to lose any weight. Like, I want to keep my figure, I want to rock my hips and everything, my curves. And so it's like, okay, great. As long as she's having her symptoms mitigated and feeling better. And the other thing that it does though, is when people feel better, they move more. And when people feel better, they do better. And so her eating habits have changed significantly, even though she knew better because I'm her mom and she was raised in a naturopathic household. Her rebellion was to eat garbage whenever she wanted to upset me. Like, instead of finding alcohol stashed under her bed, I'd find Domino's pizza boxes, So she is eating so much better because she feels better and her lights are on because of the anti-inflammatory impacts on the brain. It's phenomenal. So I'm seeing that too with patients. When people feel better, they do better.
Yeah, 100%. They just want to live life more, right?
Yeah.
Like in every way.
Yeah.
The research on lower doses is brain health, you said?
Well, so there's not a ton of research on lower doses. They've just looked at GLP-1s at various doses.
At various doses. So, but at the lower doses of which you're giving your clients, it's as an anti-inflammatory, or is it just a modulator of the whole system, the brain, the immune system? How is it working in the body? Living a long life is great, but what is even better is living those years in good health, free from chronic diseases and ailments. Unfortunately, for many, the gap between lifespan and health span is way too wide, with years spent battling illness instead of enjoying life to the fullest. That's why I'm always researching the best products to bring to you, the listener. I'm talking about high quality, rigorously tested products like the Momentous Creatine and Collagen. Those are two of my go-tos, especially when I've been doing this muscle building, health building, brain building regimen that I've been on. These two powerhouses work together to support your body's repair and performance and helps you increase your health span and be the best version of yourself for years to come. What sets Momentous apart from the rest is its clinically researched formula designed to help deliver 15 grams of collagen, supporting various types of collagen in the body. And the creatine, that's one of my favorite ones. Monohydrate, that is a gold standard of creatine supplementation. No fillers, no additives. It is pure, it is effective, it is powerful. And we know that trust is everything when it comes to supplements, and Momentous goes far above and beyond. They're committed to third-party testing, independent certifications, quality, clean. What you get on the label is what you get in your mouth. What you get on the label is what you get into your body. So if you're like me and want to fuel your body with the best, head to livemomentous.com and use the code DRG for 15% off of creatine and collagen. That is livemomentous.com/DRG for your discount. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors and take about 20,000 breaths a day. According to the EPA, indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. And in some cases, it's 100 times more polluted. It's detrimental to your overall health, but contributes to asthma, allergies, fatigue, headaches, and overall discomfort. There's a rise of pollutants and allergens in our indoor environment, and this ensures clean, purified air. So investing in an air purifier isn't just about enhancing comfort. It's about safeguarding your health, the health of your children, the health of your pets, and providing peace of mind wherever you go. I bring my air doctor everywhere. Anywhere I go in California, my air doctor is with me in my car. Air Doctor filters out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants and allergens such as pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold, and even bacteria and viruses so your lungs don't have to. Air Doctor purifiers also feature whisper jet technology that is 30% quieter than ordinary air purifiers. Air Doctor also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't love it, by any chance, you send it back for a refund minus shipping. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code DRG, and depending on the model, you'll receive up to 39% off and up to $300 off. And this is exclusive for you, the Heal Thyself listener. If you want to receive a free 3-year warranty of any kind, go to airdoctorpro.com, that is airdoctorpro.com, and use the promo code DRG.
Both.
Yeah.
I don't think we totally know. There's even huge impacts on bone, the regenerative impacts on bone, balance of osteoblasts versus osteoclasts. So just for your audience, I know you know this, but osteoclasts are what break down bone, osteoblasts build bone. As we age, our osteoclasts start to win out and our osteoblasts start to peter out. So there's an impact there, much more modulatory. I think peptides in general are just much more modulatory. So they don't swing things one way or the other. And so I'm using it in the hopes to modulate the immune system. I'm using it in the hopes to modulate the processes going on for everybody. So I've got some folks on it for just to lower blood pressure. It's a better idea to me than putting them on a pharmaceutical for life. I mean, that's the thing. People get put on pharmaceuticals for life for some of these conditions and nobody bats an eye, but they take a tiny bit of Ozempic and everyone loses their mind.
Right.
It's just wild to me. And again, in the compounded version, this stuff is really, really affordable, especially if we're needing only low doses. Now, some people need higher doses. Again, when people say, what's the dose? I'm like, well, how GLP-1 deficient are they? I've got some folks who low dose for them is definitely not the standard of care, but it's still a pretty high dose in comparison to somebody like me who might need much less. So.
Right. Pain, you said joint pain too?
Yeah, because it's impacting the immune system. It's anti-inflammatory and it has an impact on our muscles and our bones and our joints and our synovium, our synovial capsule, which surrounds the joints, our cartilage. That's what really got me interested because you know my background. And I was like, well, heck, like I don't know anything that does that. So when you start to feel better the inflammation comes down, you start to unglue. And when you start to unglue, you tend to move more. And when you move more, you feel better and your joints and your bones and your muscles feel better. So to me, it's just this feed forward mechanism that only gets better if we're doing this right. And I ask people all the time, and I have followers who hundreds of people have contacted me saying, I'm on this dose, and it's all over the board. And they're like, it changed my life. It changed my life. I got off all my antidepressants. I quit drinking. I lost weight. Yeah, but I'm active. I'm doing things I haven't done in 20 years. One lady was like, I got to go to Disneyland and go on the rides with my daughter. And this woman was dealing with obesity, but she got down to a size where she could get on a plane and go to Disneyland. But we're vilifying it. So it's like, let's vilify the application of it and the dosing and management of it. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Yeah,
it is being vilified like that because all I see is that Ozempic face and people looking malnourished, but it's being vilified in every way right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm starting to understand where this fire comes from, right? Because it's like, wow, no, it's really helping your patients or the people that you're advising to, and the opposite is being said.
Yeah.
But it's a dosing thing, like you said.
Yeah.
It's a dosing thing.
Correct.
What about in the context of autoimmune?
Yeah, so that's a big reason why I got on it, because I have had, unknowingly, I've had psoriatic arthritis for decades, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. I was just dealing with this myriad of autoimmune things all these years, and most of it was musculoskeletal. And then in 2021, when things got really thick around COVID and I was pushing back, my spine started fusing, and it was horrific. It was a bad year. It was a really painful year. I gained a bunch of weight because I couldn't move. And I was like, oh my God, I finally understand what people are going through. Like, I finally understand what happens. Like, it starts with a hip, and then you move less. And then you start to thicken up in the midsection. And then you start to get a little insulin resistant, and that feeds forward into the fat accumulation, and on it goes. And while everyone's like, oh, you look great. And I was still strong, and I was still able to get to my workouts. When I wasn't working out or working, I was laying on my back. Yeah. And nothing I was taking was working, and I have access to everything. I mean, I have access to stuff people can't get, I can put shit in my veins that people can't. And nothing was working, and all of my go-tos were not firing. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And the brain fog was also quite pronounced. That's one of the big symptoms, is the brain fog hits first, and then your joints start, the joint pain starts. And so for me, I was like, well, what have I got to lose? I'm just going to take a tiny dose and see what happens. And I'm going to titrate myself up like I do with every hormone. And so I did, and it was phenomenal. And I cannot even express to you, like, I have done everything. I have access to everything, and nothing has turned my autoimmune disease around like this. It manages it so well. It's not a get out of free card. I still have to do, that's the thing. Yeah. It's part of a comprehensive treatment plan. Yeah. There's other peptides, there's hormones, there's gut balancing, there's mental emotional work, there's spiritual work, there's movement, there's sleep, there's all of it, right? There's building and maintaining healthy relationships and getting rid of the ones that don't serve you, and staying away from toxicity, like literal and emotional. So that's all part of it. But it sort of sweetens the deal when you are doing all those things. As somebody wrote to me, she said, it makes all the hard work I'm putting in just happen so much easier. Yeah. Like, it's actually worth the effort, because so many people are doing all the things. They're doing everything we talk about. And they're just stumped. And a lot of it's happening to middle-aged women. You probably saw this in practice. I would see women come in. I mean, this will touch your heart, because I know you get it. I would see women come in, and they would look at me, and they would be in their, late 40s, early 50s, maybe into their late 50s. And they would all say the same thing. I used to look just like you. And I was in my 30s, and I was thin, and I was pretty, and everything was working just fine. And they'd say, I used to look just like you. And one day I just put on a bunch of weight, and out of nowhere, and I haven't changed anything. And I was, Miss Judgy Judy, and I'd be like, oh, you must be having more calories, or it's your hormones, or, I mean, it's not a calories in, calories out thing always, but it's something, like, we'll deal with it. And we would do everything, and we couldn't get the frickin' 15, 20 pounds off. And that 15, 20 pounds is the beginning of insulin resistance. And the beginning of insulin resistance in that age category puts you at a very high risk for breast cancer and other estrogen and hormonal driven cancers. And so I was always trying to do everything I could to get these women out of this loop. But another decade would go by, and it would be another 10 pounds, and so on and so forth. And usually they were presenting with musculoskeletal pain as well. That's why they were in my clinic. But I did all these other things as well. And I just, if I had had a tool that could have stopped that process in its path, like, what would the outcomes have been like? And I think that GLP-1s done appropriately might be that tool. Where we just sort of abate that insulin resistant profile. I didn't have any insulin resistance on labs, but cellularly I had insulin. I could feel it, and my waist circumference was going up. So I know it was happening. And I know I've been in practice long enough. I know I was like, oh my God, I'm turning into that woman. Like, this is happening. It's like, it's happening. Yeah. And all of a sudden I had these crazy estrogen symptoms and all of these things. And I was just sitting there terrified, like, oh my God, I don't want breast cancer. I don't want colon cancer. I don't want any of this shit that happens to middle-aged people. And the GLP-1 didn't reverse the clock. It just abated the whole mess. I don't know how else to put it. It just like put out a fire, and everything normalized. Wow. Incredible. Yeah. I mean, to think that it can affect our insulin, our metabolic health like that. Yeah. And that's my whole platform. Yeah. I mean, that's all I preach is, like, become more resilient, get your metabolic health in order. Easier said than done. And so many women reach out to me every day, and they're like, I'm doing everything you say, and I've got a functional medicine doctor, and I'm doing all this stuff, and it's not working, Tina. And I'm like, at a point, there's only so much our medicine can do. And so if I have a tool available, any of the peptides, the peptides got taken, most of them got taken away in November of 2023. Yeah. What happened with that? I don't know. I heard from some folks in our profession that are in the peptide space and friendly with, the processes of the FDA, that it was a secret meeting and they just went in and took all the peptides away. So we lost a whole bunch of great peptides that day, and which is devastating for a lot of practitioners who specialize in peptide therapy.
Yeah.
Most of the regenerative medicine docs do, you know, so that was a big whomp. We still have some good ones left, but we still have this one left. And so what can we put together as a profile for the patient in front of us? What do they need? And that's how I'm using it. And we cycle it like we do all peptides. That's the other problem with the standard dosing. You don't get on something and stay on it forever.
I see.
Things don't work that way, right? If you're talking about a hormone, the receptors get saturated.
Yeah.
And once that saturation happens, it's not going to work as well. So with any hormone, we take a vacation. And again, how do we cycle that? How do we rotate it? It depends on the patient.
So usually a GLP protocol has other peptides in the cycle. It's not just you're on this.
Well, it's kind of the whole bag, right? Like they got to do all the things.
For sure.
As I tell my mom, I'm not gonna keep giving these to you if you don't go out and exercise. It really is critical that all the other issues are addressed and that they're doing all the things.
We want the quick fix though.
I know, but here's what's going to happen to people. And this is the really bad part. And this is why I understand all the hate around it. If you are metabolically busted, this is the thing that nobody wants to talk about. If somebody has type 2 diabetes, they are so severely metabolically busted that they are far gone. And we say, oh, you just have type 2 diabetes. Everyone has it. Let's normalize it, right? It's so prevalent. 2018 data showed that 94% of US adults were cardiometabolically busted. And that was data that came out in 2021 from 2018. Can you imagine how much worse it is now?
Yeah.
Since lockdowns? So we've got a whole population of people, and the epigenetic impact on their offspring is devastating. The long-term implications of this on our species, this metabolic dysfunction that is all over the globe now, is so devastating on our species. And that's even a tough topic to talk about because it's very upsetting to people. We look at that, and then I'm over here like, well, what if we just used a tiny bit of this peptide to heal their metabolism and help reverse some of these horrific things? How would that work? But what's happening is they're being slammed with it. They're being kept on it. And they're saying, well, if you go off it, you're going to gain all the weight back.
Yeah.
That's not true. Some of the data coming out recently is showing that if they exercise, that's not true. They don't gain all the weight back. The people who are exercising, who take the use of the GLP-1 as a window of opportunity to change their lifestyle, they're coming out the other side and they're getting off the peptide and they're doing great. But the way that I look at peptides is that we use them when we need them. How often when we need them, I don't know. I'm going to probably be on this for life, and I'm going to use it responsibly, and I want to keep it at the lowest dose possible so it continues to work. But these folks that are taking high doses and getting slammed with it, the implications of that are terrible because they're wasting away, they're losing all their muscle, they're metabolically very brittle by the time they're in type 2 diabetes, and now we're just wasting off all the muscle they did have, and we're putting them in a severely malnourished state with these high doses. When they get done with that, they're going to be metabolically fried.
Yeah.
Like way worse off and way more brittle than they were starting out. And so I think the real issue here with the standard model, if patients, and that's the doctors that are not doing a good job. There are plenty of good doctors out there using this responsibly and doing great things for their patients. But those folks, I hear about them all the time, like my coworker, my dad, like they're wasting away. Those folks are going to be screwed at the end of it.
Yeah. And a lot of people are wasting away.
I know. And you can't get that muscle back easily. Muscle's so expensive. It's so hard to build and it's so hard to maintain as we age. And so I think the way that it's being done in the standard protocol, I totally understand why the social media is losing their minds about it.
Yeah. Super irresponsible.
Yeah.
And again, you said that if we take it at lower doses, it's not really affecting the muscles that way. If anything, it's getting rid of the fat around the muscles.
Yeah, and in the marbling.
The marbling.
Yeah.
Which is no good.
We don't want that. Marbled muscle is pathologic muscle. It drives insulin resistance. It drives all kinds of inflammatory processes in the body, but it also predisposes you to breaking your hip. So marbled muscle is not strong, stabilizing muscle. Marbled muscle is the kind of muscle that you step wrong and you fall, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that is a big problem that no one's talking about is sarcopenic obesity, which is this chronic muscle wasting leading to and contributing to the obese state. And that fat is marbling into our livers and into our pancreas and everywhere. And that's really what we're dealing with. That's what, I've been beating that drum a decade.
Yeah.
Like, go lift weights and eat meat, guys. Like, I've been saying that when everyone was saying to do yoga and be vegan. I was like, get your protein and deadlift, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, but we have to prioritize our muscle as we age.
We have to prioritize.
It's just not negotiable.
Yeah. Is there an age where we're like, okay, now you're in the red zone, you better start prioritizing?
Well, we really start wasting around our 30s. And I didn't get serious about it till I was in my 40s. In my 30s, I felt like, I remember a point in my mid 30s, I was so skinny and I was so stressed out because I was coming out of a divorce and I was in bankruptcy and I had just, I was in the middle of finishing up with 2 medical programs. And I remember thinking, if I fall, I'm going to shatter. Like, I just felt like I was going to.
Yeah.
And I see so many women walking around so skinny, especially as they
Here
age,
in
especially
LA,
in LA. Oh my gosh, just like you can see the anxiety in them. They're so thin and frail. And I'm like, if we just put 10 pounds on you, you would feel so much better, but we got to make most of that muscle. Like, we got to get you eating and lifting, like eat the food, lift the weights. Those folks are sitting in a pretty precarious spot. So I think as we age, as long as we are, we can absolutely gain muscle as we age, is my point. We just have to make it a priority, and the sooner the better.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean if you're in your 70s, you can't start. You absolutely can. Data is showing that folks that are in their older years definitely can put muscle on, but it's so hard to do as we get older because we're losing our anabolic hormonal status, that if we can, sooner the better. So all the skinny minis in their 20s, start lifting weights, right? And just build up from there.
Very important.
Yes.
And what are we setting ourselves up with if we're really tackling this in our 30s and 40s? For long-term longevity.
Putting on muscle, you mean?
Yeah.
It's the fountain of youth. It makes your skin look better, for one. It makes your brain work significantly better.
Skin health.
Skin.
Because a lot of people are like, hey, Dr. G, how do I get rid of this and this and this and my wrinkles in my skin?
Yeah. A study came out last year showing that just skin in general, and women who strength trained, their skin integrity was in their face was better. So you're going to have better looking skin. You're going to have better looking, everything just tightens up. Like, your skin just, things want to do what they want to do when you act like a human being.
Right. Like move.
Yes. Right?
Lift stuff up.
And if you look at the levers of our body, I mean, this is where my chiropractic nerd brain comes in, but we are a system of long levers. I mean, you're particularly long levers. You're a tall dude. We are built to lift heavy things.
Yeah.
Like, we are literally biomechanically built to lift heavy shit and put it down. There are certain things that the human body can do really well that other mammals cannot do. And we have a shoulder girdle that is really unstable, but moves all over the place. Like, we are supposed to be pulling and pushing and squatting and hinging. And when we lose that, I mean, you've seen the studies, the people who can't get up and down off the ground readily, significant increased risk of dying from all causes. Grip strength is a independent risk factor for death. And we've known that since the 80s. We've known that. Like, if you can't grab a bar and hold on to it for at least 30 seconds, you're in trouble. And how many women can do that? Most women are like, I can't hold on. Like, you're zombie bait, honey. You got to work on that. This is not negotiable. And I'm not judging anyone. I was that girl. Yeah. But these are things that we have to start working on if we want to survive, period. If we want to age well, age optimally, not succumb to upper respiratory viruses every time they come through. I mean, that's a huge part of it, is independently of everything else, like your muscle mass. Think about it this way. If we start to waste the muscles, the smooth muscle, which is our involuntary muscle around our lungs, starts to waste too. So a big problem a few years ago in these older folks that were not doing so well was that they literally didn't have the musculature to have the lung capacity to clear out what was in there. Okay. It's an atrophy of musculature, not just these muscles, not just skeletal muscles, but your smooth muscle, which surrounds your heart, your lungs.
We don't really talk about that, right? We don't talk about smooth muscle loss.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. Like, if you're using it, your body's going to prioritize that.
Yes.
And I always say, like, if you got to be sleeping right, you got to be moving and working out and lifting stuff up and prioritizing good protein. You know, like, it's funny. I had this conversation last year, and it set off a bulb in my head. I go, I'm turning 40 in the summer.
Oh.
And I said, I'm going to gain the most amount of muscle that I've had since college.
Nice.
And I've gained 15 pounds.
Nice.
15 pounds since this whole year.
Good for you.
And
it's not easy, is it?
Oh my God, it's not easy. It's like, I'm prioritizing eating. Like, I've never prioritized eating. I was like, oh, I got to eat again, you know? And prioritizing protein. So like, you know, my trainer's like, hey, listen, you got to write this out. I was never writing out. I kind of had it in my head.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting enough.
Nice.
So I share this because I know how important it is in this decade and definitely this upcoming decade of my life.
Yeah.
To set me up. So I always encourage people. I'm like, hey, listen, we're at that age. We really got to start prioritizing. And man, I feel so much better.
Oh, good.
Like it's day and night. It's like I feel like I can lift anything right now, you know?
It's a superpower. Isn't it? There's like it's like a sixth sense that you can't describe to people who don't have it. Strength is and it's not muscle mass. That's the other part about the muscle loss conversation. Muscle mass is so much more irrelevant than strength is. Yeah. The studies show that strength is far more important, especially as we age. That is far more critical for longevity and wellness than actual muscle mass. So big old bodybuilders who don't have any strength, your skinny little girls doing the crazy shit on the Pilates reformer, they're going to live a lot longer. I know, because I go to Pilates with all these little old ladies and they kick my butt. That kind of strength, like my husband, the farmer, he's skinny. He's tall and skinny, but he's got crazy strength. Strength is so much more valuable, especially as we age, than actual mass.
Whoa.
So I'm far less concerned about the size. I used to want bigger thighs. I have skinny legs. Like, I always wanted big thighs, and I can't get them. But man, my legs are strong. And
That's important. That's important because people always ask me, oh, I don't want to put on so much muscle. Like I'm a woman. I don't want to be like a bodybuilder. And I think to myself, well, what's the optimal muscle for someone's body? But you're saying, are you strong? Like, can you hold your grip strength? Can you, do you have leg strength? Can you hold a squat or something? You know, we have these different parameters, like the farmer's walk that I know that people
that is
the
talking about. Ticket to longevity.
Yeah. If
Farmer carries. Pick up heavy shit and walk around.
Yeah.
Your house. Pick up anything that's heavy. And walk around.
And walk around.
And hold it away from your body and walk. Like that'll do, and it does crazy things for your central nervous system, which are so good for you too. So
really,
yeah, it's just strength. It's like just a superpower.
So the strength is that oomph, the vitality.
Yes.
I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The vitality and that oomph is like, because I feel much more vital.
Yes.
Like I feel like if I get sick, it's going to be gone. You know.
It's true. I mean, during COVID, there was phenomenal studies coming out showing that those who exercised, not even strength training, just exercised regularly, we'd study after study after study coming out the entire time, or all around the world showing significant reductions in hospital admission, ICU admission, death, just from people who were active. Amazing.
So everyone viewing and listening, this is the call to action. Get to the gym. Right. And what's is there a rule of thumb? How if we want to start, maybe 4 days a week, 5 days a week, what do we start doing?
That's a lot. Just 2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, the older you are, the more you're going to have to warm up. So I neglected that and I thought I was invincible and then I hurt myself. And when you hurt yourself, you get set back and on it goes. So warm up. I probably lift 40 minutes, a good solid 40 minutes. Yeah. I just read something, actually was on my podcast. I talked about stairs, the value of stairs. They found that walking for 5 minutes upstairs was more impactful on your metabolic health and your insulin resistance than walking for 30 minutes on a flat surface.
100%.
So take the frickin' stairs.
Take the stairs. This is funny. I was doing the step yesterday after my workout, and I was with my trainer, and she's like, no. She goes, you don't want to go on the treadmill. Do this.
Stairs.
And I was like, really? And oh my God, the calories burned, but like also my body, I was like, whoa, this was... After only 20 minutes we did.
Oh, the stairs are great.
Dripping in sweat.
And especially if you can do it outside, anything you can do outside in the sun.
Bleachers or something like that. That's really nice in the sun.
And go up. Going downstairs is not great on the knees and back, but the up is great. So, walk down and then I huff it up every time I see stairs, especially if you're weighted, like if you have a weighted vest or like I'm at the airport and I have my backpack. Anytime I see stairs, we always skip the escalator and I haul up the stairs. There's impacts on your emotional health they've seen. Yeah, just as soon as you can find stairs. I mean, when I worked at the hospital for the residency, never took the elevator. Oh, good. I said, and I was on the 5th floor. Okay. So I would go, and then the clinics was like on the 1st, so I would go up and down and up and down. That was before the Oura Ring. I wonder how many steps I would get a day, but like so much better. Yeah. And that makes you strong too. It builds strength and vitality. Yeah. That's what it is. We're just trying to stoke vitality, right? At the end of the day, I'm trying to stoke vitality. And I found too with these GLP-1s at the right dose, like it really improves my vitality. I guess that's what was waning for me in 2021 when I said I was scared and I was having all these symptoms. Yeah. We can put them in terms of like physical symptoms, but I just could feel my vitality was leaving my body. And that's always a bad sign. That's when you get sick.
Exactly.
Bad sick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You don't have that glow, that special oomph, right? And incredible conversation. I mean, like, you really piqued my interest on these GLPs, you know, like, it's not something I remember learning in school.
No, well, they're relatively new. I think semaglutide came out, 2+ years ago. And then we got to blame the Kardashians, as always. They've done so much for our society. I think Kim came out having used it and lost a bunch of weight and got into some Marilyn Monroe dress, and then everybody went crazy.
At the Met Gala, I think it was.
Yeah, everyone went crazy, and they're not. I mean, this is something I do want to bring up. They're reserved for those who are diabetic or morbidly obese. And my argument is, do we wait until somebody has a heart attack before we give them a blood pressure medication? No. So, as well as I do, we practice preventative medicine. And when that woman shows up to my office and she's 50 years old, and she's already lost a mom or an aunt to breast cancer, and she says, I just put on 20 pounds. Yeah. My waist is increasing. I don't know what happened. I haven't changed anything. I'm doing all the things, Dr. Tyna. That's the woman I'm going to put on semaglutide immediately. Something is wrong. And that insulin resistance insulin is pro-grow, and it grows cancer. So
big thing.
I'm a big fan of and I know it's been shocking to my audience. They're like, when, you're sold out to big pharma, this and that. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not even talking about the big pharma brand. Although some people can tolerate that dose. That might be their starting dose. I'm talking about reversing insulin resistance at the first signs, and not letting everybody go down that path so far. That what is with our medical system? Like, we intervene when people are in the worst state. Yeah. And there's no shortage of semaglutide. There's a shortage of from what I understand, the dispensing pens. There's plenty of semaglutide. I'm sure now maybe the, Novo Nordisk and those companies are not producing as much, or I have no idea what's going on. I also don't understand the cost thing. A study just came out showing it costs them about, I think, $5 to $7 to make a month's supply, and they're selling it for $1,000 a month or more. In Germany, you can get it for $60 a month. In Canada, it's that's patient cost, $150 a month. In the United States, it's $1,000 or more. I mean, I'm not down with that whole version of this, but there is a place for these, and I think done appropriately, they can be really life-changing.
Incredible. So if somebody is interested, they go, wow, this podcast, man, you piqued my interest. I bet you piqued a lot of people. What do we do? How do we even explore that with our doctor? Will they be able to do that for us?
Oh, that's a hard question. I'm trying to figure it out. So I have a free 4-part video training series where I talk about a lot of these things in more detail, and you can grab that on my website at drtyna.com. And that leads them into a course where I do go into this more deeply. I think it starts with empowerment and education on the patient's behalf. And so really understanding as much as they can so they can go in and have a conversation with their doctor. Not that the doctors are not all keen on the compounded version. There has been a really huge smear campaign, interestingly. Medicine, you've been around a long time, and suddenly everywhere I turn, there's some big smear campaign against compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide, and the doctors seem to be vehemently against it, even though there's no increased risk. There's no problem with the compounded version. There is more risk in the compounded version for patients to accidentally pull up too much because they're not pre-filled pens. It's dependent on the patient pulling out of a vial. And I will say a little bit too much GLP-1 can be a lot too much. Like, there's a fine line on what's right for each person. So I think there's a problem there. And then I'm hearing from my friend who's an ER nurse that there's tons of people showing up with too much in their system, and they're having horrific side effects. So I see that there's a real risk here, but done responsibly and in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, I think it can be done. So I'd start with your functional medicine doctors, your longevity doctors. Those are the doctors that are going to have the conversation and probably know more about it and be more open to using compounded. So start there. And I mean, there's so many different options. I just don't know. I literally made this up. This microdosing idea came out of my brain, and I don't know who's doing it correctly, or not. I shouldn't say correctly. I don't know who's doing it according to how my brain is working. But my program, I've got a lot of doctors in there. So a lot of doctors are getting educated. The general public's in there too, getting educated. And they're giving me feedback saying, you know what, I'm following the directions that you gave in the course, and we're having great luck with our doctors. The doctors are hearing them. Well, if a patient comes in, we're pretty open-minded, but if a patient comes in educated and has the data and says, I want to try this, or
Yeah.
this is something I'm interested in. Can we ease in easily? I think even the most closed-minded doctor is going to be happy to keep people on smaller doses than larger doses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, makes sense.
it takes some patient empowerment, I think.
You mentioned your website.
Oh, yeah.
How do you spell it?
Tyna.
Tyna.
Yeah, DRTYNA.
And we can find all the goodies there.
Yeah, it's drtyna.com. And then if you go / Ozempic Uncovered, there's a free 4-part training series. And then all my stuff's there, my podcast, everything. I got to get you on my podcast.
I'm ready. I'm going to come on.
We've talked about this before. And
I'm ready. I'm ready. Just put me on. We got the same medium guy here. We have So I'll
Drake.
come on. We got Drake. And your Instagram.
Oh, yeah, it's Dr. Tyna, DRTYNA.
All right, everyone, go check her out. And what an incredible conversation. I mean, this is really something. Like I say, pique my interest. A lot of podcast guests pique my interest. This one's like, okay, I got to talk to you about this off air. Everyone, go check out her resources to learn more, and ask your doctor about it if you think it's a good fit for you. Thank you so much, Doc. I appreciate you educating us, all the gems, all your work, all your passion, all your fire. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So glad to be here.